Home Run on the Edge, 105.1, 105.3. It is 5:30, so it's time for us to jump into the legal landscape. We're looking at the Sexual Harassment Bill and what you need to know. It's the long-awaited Sexual Harassment Protection and Prevention Bill, which was first tabled in Parliament in 2019 and which has been extensively debated in the Joint Select Committee of Parliament and has gone through various iterations since. So the 2021 version of the bill, which was approved by the House of Parliament in July, covers employers' obligations as it relates to instances of sexual harassment in the workplace, as well as the procedure for employees to make complaints. The bill will next be debated in the Senate in short order and will thereafter become law. Now, as this will impact our employers, employees, and even tenants and landlords, it is important that we have an understanding of the definition of sexual harassment. Should I say that again for you? As this will impact employers, employees, and even tenants and landlords, it is important that we all have an understanding of the definition of sexual harassment and what is a person's recourse in the event that they are a victim of such harassment. Ms. Kelly Akin is an associate in the Corporate and Commercial Department at DunnCox. Joins us right now on The Edge Home Run. Good afternoon. Welcome to Home Run on The Edge. Ms. Akin, what is sexual harassment?
Hi, Deon. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure indeed. These are things that we all need to be reminded of the definition of, eh?
Yes, it is. So let me tell you, sexual harassment is defined under the bill as making any unwelcomed sexual advances towards a person, which can be regarded as offensive or humiliating to that person. And other situations where such advances interferes with that person's work performance or creates an intimidating, hostile work environment. Mm-hmm. But what you really want to consider, though, is what is sexual advances? Because what you think are sexual advances and somebody else or whatever, mm-hmm. It may be a different thing.
Can I just ask my listeners right now, for those of you listening, that this section here, we have it for another 8 minutes or so. It's open for you. So don't forget to send your questions on this topic that we're discussing today. You can send it to 1-876-383-1166. Type it out for us, or you can call us 876-906-9559. We're speaking with Kelly Akin. She is an associate in the Corporate and Commercial Department at DunnCox. We're looking at the Sexual Harassment Bill 2021. Thank you. I just had to make sure to remind everyone with that.
No problem, Deanna. I totally understand. So I was actually just about to jump in and say what is really a sexual advance. It's different for each person. But the bill is very definitive on it. It says the sexual advance would be physical contact of a sexual nature, a demand or request for sex, sexual suggestions, innuendos, showing somebody pornography on your phone. If somebody sends you a WhatsApp in the work group and you think it's funny, but it might be offensive, things like that. Mm-hmm. So that's what's considered a sexual advance. Mm-hmm. But I tell you what, though, Deon, usually when people think about sexual harassment, they think of it from a boss making an advance on an employee. But the bill doesn't look at it in a one-dimensional way. It actually prohibits sexual harassment between coworkers or between an employee and a client. Or I tell you what, even an employee harassing their own supervisor.
Big changes for a lot of people.
Yes.
What are the obligations? Let's look at that. Let's start off with the employer's obligations under the 2021 bill.
All right. So the employer has an obligation to make a reasonable effort, and that's very important here, reasonable effort to ensure that their employees are not sexually harassed in the course of their employment. And so what that really translates to is an obligation on the employer to issue a written policy regarding the protection of their workers from sexual harassment. And I tell you, they have to do that in 12 months, within 12 months of the law being passed, whenever it is passed, and as well as put in place any other system necessary that would create that safe work environment that we've been talking about. And I should take this opportunity to mention that the bill not only applies in the context of workplace, but it also applies to schools, prisons, hospitals, and other types of institutions.
All right. So, what type of detail will we need to consider in a company's sexual harassment policy?
All right, very easily. It needs to, one, include the definition of sexual harassment that would be in accordance with the bill. Two, a statement that the employees are entitled to that work environment that is free from sexual harassment, that safe environment we've been talking about. Details of the disciplinary measures that would be taken against someone who sexually harasses an employee. And finally, details about how complaints can be made and how they will be handled internally.
And then if an employer doesn't comply with the act, what are the penalties? Well,
first off, if an employer does not have in place that policy we've been talking about, they can be fined up to $1 million. Also, if an employee can make a complaint to a tribunal that will be appointed where an employer fails to meet his obligation under the law. So the bill actually allows for the appointment of an authorized officer who will be kind of responsible for ensuring compliance by the employers, kind of a watchdog under the law.
There may be persons listening, and I'm sticking a little bit more to employer-employee because we're not really supposed to be out and about too much. So this may be the main contact for some persons that we have at this point in time. But how are the complaints by employees to be handled?
Right. So when an employer gets a complaint, the complaint must be submitted by the employee. That's the person who is claiming to be harassed, and they must submit that complaint in writing. The employer must advise the person against who the complaint was made, so that's the accused, in writing that such a complaint was made within 2 days of receiving the complaint, and then they must start their investigations into this accusation within 14 days. And that investigation cannot be dragged out. It must be completed without delay. And any employer who fails to follow that procedure is liable to be brought before the tribunal, and that could have a variety of results depending on the type of case, but that includes reinstatement of any employee that may have been dismissed or payment of damages.
And then what about false claims? Is there a provision that will address any false claims?
Well, this is probably the shortest answer I'm going to give you, Deon. Yes. Any person who falsely claims to be a victim of sexual harassment in the workplace will be or shall be liable to be fined up to $1 million or a term of 3 months in prison.
And you had mentioned as well, Kelly Akin is an associate in the corporate and commercial department at DunnCox, joining us this evening for the legal landscape. This new bill, the Sexual Harassment Bill 2021, it covers a wide range of relationships. You said it's landlord and tenant.
No, not landlord and tenant. It involves like a school,
yes,
or prisons, hospitals, and other types of institutions like that. So in the context, you'd be looking at not an employer-employee, but the person who is in charge of such an institution, and the students or the patients, the prisoners. So it would govern those relationships as well.
I see. Thank you for making that clear. Well, we know we usually ask you for a tidbit of the day. So do you have a tidbit that you can share with us?
I can give you two, actually. Very important to me, I think, coming out of this bill. Firstly, employers need to know that there is liability for them if they don't comply. And secondly, false claims may have consequences.
So it's speak the truth and speak it ever.
Exactly. Cost you what you will.
Oh, I tell you, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for being so clear and so precise with us. Kelly Akin, associate in the corporate and commercial department at DunnCox, joining us this evening 4, The Legal Landscape. We'll have another feature next week, Wednesday. Do join us, and we're here to make the law as clear as possible for everyone listening. Thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us today.
All right. Thanks, Deon.
A pleasure, a pleasure. Kelly Akin, Associate in the Corporate and Commercial Department at DunnCox. The Legal Landscape. Yes. The Sexual Harassment Bill. What you need to know.